The great crystal tower of Nexus Prime stretched high into the purple sky. Inside its gleaming halls, beings from across the galaxy rushed through corridors in panic. Emergency lights flashed red along the walls. The sound of many different voices filled the air as creatures spoke in hundreds of languages. Ambassador Zethkri pulled his flowing robes tight around his tall, thin body. His 4 eyes darted nervously as he walked toward the main council chamber. In his clawed hands he carried a datapad that made him shake with fear. The information on it would change everything the galaxy thought it knew about power and war. The massive doors to the council chamber slid open with a deep rumble. Inside, representatives from 847 different species sat, in rows that rose up like a mountain of seats. Some beings had scales that glittered in the light. Others had fur or feathers or skin that looked like metal. Many had more arms or legs than seemed possible. All of them looked worried. At the center of the chamber stood a floating platform where speakers could address the crowd. High above, the council's leaders sat behind a curved desk that glowed with soft blue light. These were the oldest and most powerful beings in the galaxy. Today, even they looked scared. Council leader Mordak raised one of his 6 arms for silence. His voice boomed through speakers that carried his words to every corner of the huge room. We gather today because of reports that trouble us all. For 3 cycles now, ships have been vanishing from the outer rim. Not just any ships. The Void Reapers are gone. A wave of shocked whispers swept through the chamber. The Void Reapers had been the galaxy's worst nightmare for over 1,000 years. They were pirates and killers who destroyed entire worlds just for fun. Their black ships moved like ghosts through space. Their weapons could crack planets in half. Every civilized species had tried to stop them at some point. All had failed. Ambassador Zethkri stepped onto the floating platform. His voice shook as he began to speak. Honored Council, what I am about to show you will seem impossible. 3 days ago, our deep space monitors picked up a battle near the Kethvar system. We thought it was the Void Reapers attacking another helpless colony. Pressed a button on his data pad. A huge screen descended from the ceiling. Fuzzy images appeared, showing dark space filled with stars. Suddenly, bright flashes of light lit up the screen. The watchers could see the familiar black shapes of Void Reaper ships. There were dozens of them, enough to destroy a small fleet. Watch carefully, Zethkri said. At first, we see nothing unusual. The Void Reapers move in their normal attack formation, but then the image changed. New ships appeared on the screen, but they looked different from anything the Council had ever seen. They were silver and sleek, with smooth curves that seemed to flow like water. They moved with perfect coordination, like a school of fish swimming through the void. These unknown vessels engaged the Void Reapers, Zethkri continued. What happened next should have been impossible. The Void Reapers are the most feared warriors in the galaxy. They have never lost a battle. They have never retreated. But watch. The screen showed flashes of weapon fire. The silver ships moved in patterns that seemed to predict where the Void Reapers would be before they got there. One by one, the black ships began to explode, not damaged or disabled, but completely destroyed. Within minutes, the entire Void Reaper fleet was nothing but glowing debris. The council chamber fell silent. 1,000 different creatures stared at the screen in disbelief. Finally, Counselor Hextra spoke. Her voice was barely a whisper. Who could do this? What weapons could destroy Void Reaper shields so easily? Zethkri's voice grew even more shaky. That is not the strangest part, Honored Council. Our sensors detected more battles across 7 different systems. Each time, the same silver ships appeared. Each time, they completely destroyed Void Reaper fleets. In just 3 days, these unknowns have wiped out raiders that have terrorized the galaxy for centuries. Military advisor Thexmar stood up from his seat. He was a warrior from the proud Kethani people, with thick armor covering his massive body. His species had fought the Void Reapers for generations and barely survived each encounter. "This cannot be real," he growled. "No one has weapons that powerful. Show us the energy signatures. Show us the ship designs. We will identify these vessels." Zethkri pressed more buttons on his pad. New images filled the screen showing detailed scans of the mysterious ships. The readings made no sense. The energy patterns were unlike anything in the Galactic database. The hull materials seemed to shift and change as sensors tried to analyze them. Even the way the ships moved through space seemed to break known laws of physics. "We ran these signatures through every database in Council space," Zethkri said. "Nothing matches. These ships use technology we do not understand. Technology that may be more advanced than anything we have ever seen." Fear spread through the chamber like a disease. If beings this powerful existed in the galaxy, why had no one ever encountered them before? Were they invaders from another galaxy? Were they some ancient race awakening from a long sleep? The questions multiplied with no answers. Suddenly, a young aide rushed into the chamber. She ran straight to Council Leader Mordak and whispered urgently in his ear. The great leader's expression changed from confusion to shock, to something that might have been terror. Mordak stood slowly. "Fellow counselors," he said, "we have just received a transmission from the unknown fleet. They have identified themselves. They wish to meet with us." The chamber erupted in noise as hundreds of species all tried to talk at once. Some voices called for immediate military preparation. Others demanded to know who these mysterious beings were. A few suggested trying to hide or flee. Mordak raised all 6 arms again, and slowly the noise died down. "The transmission was sent in perfect Galactic standard language," he said. The message was simple and direct. It said, "This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the Terran Defense Fleet. We come seeking dialogue." Complete silence fell over the chamber. Every being in the room knew that name. Terran, human, Earth. They were the primitive species from the 3rd planet of a small yellow star. The Council had made contact with them only decades ago. They had barely learned to travel between stars. Their technology was crude and simple. Their weapons were laughably weak compared to galactic standards, but humans had just done something impossible. They had destroyed the most feared military force in known space. They had technology that surpassed the galaxy's greatest civilizations. They had been hiding their true power all along. Ambassador Zethkri's voice was barely audible. "The humans are coming here. They want to talk. And after seeing what they did to the Void Reapers..." He paused and looked around the chamber at all the worried faces. "I think we had better listen very carefully to what they have to say." The Great Council of the Galaxy, rulers of countless worlds and billions of lives, sat in stunned silence. Everything they thought they knew about the balance of power had just changed forever. The humans were coming, and there was nowhere in the galaxy to hide from beings who could make the Void Reapers simply disappear. The edge of the Nexus Prime system had been empty space just moments before. Now it blazed with the light of 1,000 stars as massive ships dropped out of hyperspace. Every sensor station on the planet went crazy with warnings and alarms. Captain Veltar stared at his displays in disbelief. He commanded the most advanced monitoring station in Council space, with sensors that could detect a single fighter craft from 3 star systems away. But these ships had appeared without any warning at all. "Sir," his sensor operator called out, her voice tight with fear, "the lead vessel it's enormous, bigger than anything in our databases." On the main screen, the human flagship slowly rotated in space. The ship was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Its silver hull caught the light from Nexus Prime's sun and threw it back in rainbow patterns. But there was something about its shape that spoke of war. Every curve and angle looked designed to fight and win. "How many ships?" Veltar asked, though he was not sure he wanted to know the answer. "That's the problem, sir. Our count keeps changing. Sometimes we see 50 vessels, sometimes we see 500, sometimes we see nothing but the flagship. Veltar felt his blood turn cold. Ships that could hide from their best sensors meant technology beyond anything the Council possessed. Get me a direct line to the Council chamber. They need to know what we're seeing. In the Great Crystal Tower, panic had taken hold. Military leaders shouted orders while diplomatic staff tried to figure out proper protocols for meeting beings who could destroy Void Reaper fleets. No one had ever written rules for this situation. Council leader Mordak stood at the center of the chaos, trying to make sense of the reports flooding in from across the system. "How many ships are we dealing with?" he demanded. "We don't know, sir," Admiral Kethvar replied. The admiral was the Council's top military commander, a veteran of dozens of wars. Today he looked like a scared child. "Our sensors show different numbers every few seconds. The humans have stealth technology we cannot penetrate." "Stealth technology?" Mordak's voice rose in pitch. "The humans we observed 20 years ago could barely maintain life support on their primitive vessels. Now you tell me they can hide entire fleets from our sensors?" Before anyone could answer, a new alarm sounded throughout the chamber. The main communications array had detected an incoming transmission. But this was not like the first message. This signal was so powerful it overrode every other communication system on the planet. Every screen, every display, every personal communicator suddenly showed the same image. A human woman appeared on every device. She looked young by human standards, with short dark hair and calm brown eyes. Her uniform was simple but well made, with symbols of rank that looked somehow familiar, even though no one in the Council had ever seen them before. "I am Admiral Sarah Chen of the Terran Defense Fleet," the woman said. Her voice was clear and confident, carrying the tone of someone used to being obeyed. "I request permission to meet with the Galactic Council to discuss matters of mutual concern." The simplicity of her words somehow made them more frightening. She was not asking for help or begging for an audience. She was informing them that she wanted to talk, and her tone suggested that refusing would not be wise. Council leader Mordak stepped forward. "Admiral Chen, I am Mordak, current leader of the Galactic Council. We welcome dialogue with your people. However, we must follow proper diplomatic protocols. Perhaps you could send a small delegation while your fleet waits at a safe distance." Admiral Chen's expression did not change, but something in her eyes suggested amusement. "Council leader Mordak, I appreciate your position. However, I think there may be some confusion about our relative situations. My fleet is currently positioned throughout your system. We have taken defensive positions around your military installations, your orbital platforms, and your government centers." The Council chamber erupted in shouts of outrage and fear. Military advisor Thexmar pushed his way forward. "That is an act of aggression. You dare threaten the heart of galactic civilization?" "No threat has been made," Admiral Chen replied, calmly. "We are simply ensuring that our meeting proceeds without interference. Your military forces remain free to operate within normal parameters. Any attempt to attack or detain our vessels, however, would be inadvisable." Thexmar's face turned darker with rage. "Impossible! Our defense grid is the strongest in the galaxy. No fleet could position themselves around Nexus Prime without us detecting them." Admiral Chen touched something on her uniform. Suddenly, new contacts appeared on every tactical display in the Council chamber. Hundreds of human ships materialized around the planet, in orbit, near space stations, positioned exactly where she had claimed. They had been there all along, invisible to the galaxy's most advanced sensors. "As I said," Admiral Chen continued, "we have taken defensive positions. I would like to transport down to your chamber for face-to-face discussions. I assume this is acceptable." The silence that followed lasted for nearly a minute. Every member of the Council understood what they had just witnessed. The humans had not only hidden an enormous fleet from detection, they had positioned that fleet precisely where it could do the most damage if necessary. This was not luck or accident. This was the work of military planners who understood exactly how galactic defenses worked and exactly how to defeat them. Council leader Mordak finally found his voice. Admiral Chen, we welcome you to address the Council in person. We will prepare suitable accommodations. That will not be necessary, Admiral Chen replied. I will transport to your chamber in 10 minutes. I hope the Council will be ready to discuss some difficult topics. We have much to talk about. The transmission ended, leaving the chamber in stunned silence. In 10 minutes, they would meet face-to-face with a representative of a species they had dismissed as primitive, a species that had just demonstrated military capabilities beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen. Ambassador Zethkree spoke the question that was on everyone's mind. What else have they been hiding from us? The answer came sooner than anyone expected. Exactly 10 minutes later, Admiral Sarah Chen materialized in the center of the council chamber. She appeared out of thin air without any visible transportation device or energy signature. One moment the platform was empty, the next moment she stood there as if she had always been present. She was smaller than many of the beings around her, but her presence filled the enormous room. She looked calmly around the chamber, taking in the hundreds of different species with the cool assessment of a professional soldier. Honored Council, she said, her voice carrying clearly to every corner of the chamber without any amplification system. Thank you for agreeing to meet with me. I think it's time we had an honest conversation about humanity's place in this galaxy. The age of galactic ignorance was over. The humans had arrived, and everything was about to change. Admiral Sarah Chen stood perfectly still in the center of the council chamber while hundreds of alien eyes stared at her. The silence stretched on for long moments. Finally, military advisor Thexmar rose from his seat, his massive armored form towering over the smaller human. Admiral Chen, he said, his voice rough with barely controlled anger, you speak of honest conversation, but you come to us with hidden fleets and impossible technology. How do we know you are not simply another threat to galactic peace? Admiral C. Chen turned to face him directly. Her calm expression never changed, but something in her stance suggested she was ready for anything. Advisor Thexmar, I understand your concerns. Trust must be earned through actions, not words. What would you suggest? Thexmar stepped closer to the platform where Chen stood. He had fought in more battles than any other being in the chamber. He had seen civilizations rise and fall. He was not impressed by parlor tricks and stealth technology. Prove your claims, he growled. Show us these weapons that supposedly destroyed the Void Reapers, but show us in a way that does not endanger innocent lives. Admiral Chen nodded slowly. A demonstration. That seems reasonable. Do you have a suitable target in mind? Council leader Mordak activated his communication panel. There is an old battle station in the HFY system about 2 hours away, by hyperspace. It was abandoned after the Hive Wars ended 50 years ago. The structure is massive but empty. It would serve as an adequate test of your weapons capabilities. The HFY station? Thexmar's eyes widened slightly. Admiral Chen, that battle station was built by the ancients themselves. Its hull is made of materials we still do not fully understand. Its shields, even after 50 years of neglect, are stronger than most modern warships. If you can damage it significantly, that would indeed be impressive. Admiral Chen smiled for the first time since her arrival. The expression was not entirely reassuring. Advisor Thexmar, I think you may be surprised by the results. Shall we proceed to the HFY system so you can observe our methods? Within the hour, a mixed fleet of council observers and human vessels dropped out of hyperspace near the abandoned battle station. The ancient structure hung in space like a metal moon, its dark hull scarred by decades of cosmic radiation and meteor impacts. Even empty and powerless, it looked formidable. Aboard his flagship, the Sword of Justice, Thexmar studied the tactical displays with growing unease. The human fleet had grown larger since leaving Nexus Prime. Ships that had been invisible before now, showed themselves openly. Their formations were perfect, with distances and angles that spoke of intensive training and iron discipline. "Admiral," his sensor operator called out, "we're detecting some unusual energy readings from the human vessels. The signatures are unlike anything in our databases." Thexmar grunted acknowledgement. "Keep recording everything. The Council will want detailed analysis of whatever these humans are about to attempt." Admiral Chen's voice came through the communication system, clear and professional as always. "Advisor Thexmar, are your observation systems ready? We would like to ensure you capture complete data on our demonstration." "We are ready, Admiral Chen," Thexmar replied. "Proceed when you are prepared." "Thank you. Beginning demonstration now." At first, nothing seemed to happen. The human ships maintained their formation around the ancient battle station. Then Thexmar noticed that several of the vessels had begun to glow with a soft blue light. The glow spread from ship to ship until the entire human fleet blazed like stars. "Energy levels are climbing off our scales," the sensor operator reported. "Whatever they're charging up, it's beyond our ability to measure." The attack, when it came, was nothing like what Thexmar expected. Instead of massive energy beams or explosive missiles, the human ships fired what looked like streams of silver light. The beams struck the battle station's ancient shields and simply passed through them as if they were not there. Where the silver light touched the battle station's hull, something impossible happened. The metal began to dissolve, not melted or vaporized, but actually broken down into its component atoms. Sections of the massive structure simply ceased to exist, leaving perfectly smooth gaps where solid matter had been moments before. "By all the ancient gods," Thexmar whispered, watching his tactical display in horror, "they're not just destroying it, they're unmaking it." The demonstration lasted exactly 3 minutes. When it ended, the battle station was gone. Not debris, floating in space, not twisted wreckage cooling in the void, but simply gone. Where a structure the size of a small moon had hung in space, there was now nothing but empty void and a few scattered atoms too light to detect on normal sensors. Admiral Chen's voice came through the communication system again. "I trust that was sufficient to demonstrate our weapons capabilities, Advisor Thexmar." Thexmar could not speak. His throat had gone dry with fear. Weapons that could unmake matter itself were beyond anything he had imagined possible. But Admiral Chen was not finished with her demonstration. "However," she continued, "I think there may still be some doubt about our overall capabilities. Advisor Thexmar, your flagship is quite impressive. The Sword of Justice represents the finest military technology your people have developed. Perhaps you would permit us a small additional demonstration." "What kind of demonstration?" Thexmar managed to ask, though he dreaded the answer. "Nothing harmful," Admiral Chen assured him. "We would simply like to show you some of our other capabilities. With your permission, of course." Thexmar looked around his bridge at his crew. These were veteran warriors who had faced every threat the galaxy could produce. Today, they looked like frightened children. "What exactly are you proposing, Admiral?" "We would like to temporarily take control of your vessel, just for a few minutes, to demonstrate our electronic warfare capabilities. Your crew will not be harmed, and your ship will be returned to your command immediately afterward." The suggestion was so outrageous that Thexmar almost laughed. The Sword of Justice had the most advanced computer security in Council space. Its systems were protected by quantum encryption that would take centuries to break. The idea that the humans could simply take control was absurd. "Admiral Chen, our ship's security systems are absolutely state-of-the-art. I seriously doubt your people could penetrate them in any reasonable time frame." "We shall see," Admiral Chen replied. "Beginning electronic infiltration now." For exactly 12 seconds, nothing happened. Thexmar was beginning to think the humans had overestimated their abilities. Then every system on his ship began to shut. Down, weapons offline, shields offline, life support switching to backup power. navigation computers displaying error messages in languages no one had ever seen before. But the most terrifying moment came when his bridge doors suddenly opened and figures in dark armor walked through the walls themselves. Not through the doors, through the solid metal walls as if they were made of air. The human Marines moved with mechanical precision to surround Thexmar and his crew. They made no threatening gestures and kept their weapons lowered, but their presence was more intimidating than any show of force could have been. One of them spoke, his voice muffled by his helmet. "Advisor Thexmar, your vessel is now under human control. Please remain calm. This is only a demonstration. Control will be returned to you momentarily." Thexmar stared at the Marine who had spoken. "How are you here? How did you get through our shields, our hull, our security?" "That information is classified," the Marine replied politely. "Admiral Chen sends her regards and wants you to know that your ship and crew are perfectly safe." True to their word, the humans maintained control of the Sword of Justice for exactly 5 minutes. Then, as suddenly as they had appeared, the Marines vanished through the walls again. Ship systems came back online one by one. Everything returned to normal as if nothing had happened. Admiral Chen's voice came through the communication system one final time. "I trust this demonstration has been informative, Advisor Thexmar. We look forward to continuing our discussions back at Nexus Prime." Thexmar slumped in his command chair, staring at displays that showed his ship was completely undamaged and functioning normally. But he knew that everything had changed. The humans had not just demonstrated superior weapons or stealth technology. They had casually taken control of the Council's most advanced warship without breaking a sweat. As the fleets prepared to return to Nexus Prime, Thexmar realized the horrible truth. The demonstration had not been about showing off human capabilities. It had been about making it clear that resistance was pointless. The humans could have destroyed every ship in the Council fleet as easily as they had unmade the ancient battle station. They had chosen to show mercy instead. The question now was, why? The emergency session of the Galactic Council had been going on for 6 hours without a break. Representatives from every major civilization huddled in small groups, speaking in whispers and glancing nervously at Admiral Chen, who sat calmly, in the center of the chamber, as if she had not just demonstrated the power to destroy them all. Council Leader Mordak called for order, his voice shaking despite his attempts to sound calm. "Fellow councilors, we have witnessed capabilities that challenge everything we thought we knew about galactic power structures. I believe it is time for complete honesty. Admiral Chen, how long have your people possessed these technologies?" Admiral Chen stood smoothly and looked around the chamber with those calm brown eyes. "The better question, Council Leader Mordak, is how long we have been preparing for this conversation. The answer is 97 years, 4 months, and 16 days. A wave of confused murmurs swept through the chamber. Ambassador Zethkri rose from his seat. "Admiral Chen, our records show that humanity only achieved faster-than-light travel 60 years ago. Your first contact with galactic civilization was barely 40 years past." "Your records are correct, Ambassador Zethkri," Admiral Chen replied with a slight smile. "But they do not tell the complete story. Would you like to hear about the merchant vessel Prosperity that visited Earth 98 years ago?" Zethkri's 4 eyes went wide. "The Prosperity was a survey ship from my own people. It was conducting routine mapping of uninhabited systems. The crew reported that the third planet showed signs of primitive industrial civilization, but no space. Travel capabilities." "The crew of the Prosperity was not wrong," Admiral Chen said. "However, they made one critical error. They assumed that primitive technology meant primitive intelligence. While your people were conducting their surveys, my people were conducting their own observations." She touched a control on her uniform, and the chamber's main screen lit up with images. The first showed Earth as it had appeared nearly a century ago, with primitive spacecraft barely capable of reaching their own moon. But the next images showed something impossible. Human observers watching alien survey teams from hidden positions. Every survey mission to Earth was carefully monitored, Admiral Chen continued. We studied your technology, your languages, your cultures, and your military capabilities. When the Prosperity left our system, we already understood the basic principles of your faster-than-light drives. Military advisor Thexmar pushed his way forward, his massive form trembling with rage. Impossible. Survey teams are protected by the highest levels of operational security. No primitive civilization could penetrate those safeguards. Admiral Chen's smile grew slightly wider. You underestimated us, Advisor Thexmar. It is a mistake many civilizations have made throughout history. While you saw primitive creatures barely capable of spaceflight, we saw an opportunity to learn from the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy. New images appeared on the screen showing human infiltrators aboard alien vessels, human technicians examining captured alien technology, and human scientists reverse engineering systems that should have been beyond their understanding. For nearly a century, humanity has been the galaxy's most successful intelligence operation, Admiral Chen said. Every trade mission to Earth included human observers. Every diplomatic contact allowed us to study your cultures and capabilities. Every primitive human who traveled to galactic worlds was actually a trained operative gathering information. Revelations hit the Council like hammer blows. Representative after representative stood up as they realized the implications of what they were hearing. The human who worked as a maintenance technician on Hegemony Station for 15 years, called out Ambassador Veltar. He was one of yours? Agent Martinez provided excellent intelligence on Hegemony military capabilities, Admiral Chen confirmed. The human students at the Advanced Physics Institute on Nexus Prime? All intelligence operatives studying your most advanced technologies. The human traders who establish supply routes throughout Council space? Military logistics specialists mapping our supply lines and defensive positions. The questions came faster and faster as the horrible truth became clear. For decades, the galaxy's most advanced civilizations had been infiltrated by beings they considered barely civilized. Human operatives had worked their way into positions throughout galactic society, always watching, always learning, always reporting back to Earth. Council leader Mordak's voice was barely a whisper. How many of your people are among us? Admiral Chen paused as if considering how much to reveal. Currently active operatives number in the tens of thousands. However, if you include those who have completed their missions and returned to human space, the number would be much higher. Tens of thousands? Ambassador Zethkri's voice rose to a shriek. Tens of thousands of human spies have been among us for decades, and we never knew. You never suspected, Admiral Chen corrected gently. There is a difference. Humans are very good at becoming what others expect them to be. When you expected primitive, curious creatures eager to learn from superior galactic civilization, that is exactly what our operatives appeared to be. She touched her uniform again, and the screen showed a galactic map covered with thousands of glowing points. Each point represented a human operative or intelligence asset scattered across Council space. Every major military installation has been observed and mapped, Admiral Chen continued. Every new technology has been studied and analyzed. Every political development has been reported and evaluated. For nearly a century, humanity has been building the most complete intelligence network in galactic history. The chamber fell completely silent as the full scope of human infiltration became clear. They had not just been watched. They had been dissected, analyzed, and understood at levels they had never imagined possible. Ambassador Hextra found her voice first. But why? What did you hope to gain from all this deception? Understanding, Admiral Chen replied simply. When we first encountered galactic civilization, we realized that we were entering a very dangerous neighborhood. The Void Reapers were just one threat among many. We saw civilizations destroyed by wars, conquered by superior technology, or simply swept aside by forces they could not comprehend. We decided that would not be humanity's fate. "So you spied on us for a century?" Thexmar growled. "We prepared," Admiral Chen corrected. "We learned. We adapted. We made certain that when the time came for humanity to take its place in galactic affairs, we would be ready for whatever challenges awaited us." New images appeared on the screen showing massive, industrial facilities hidden throughout human space, shipyards that dwarfed anything the Council had ever built, research centers developing technologies beyond galactic understanding, military training facilities where humans learned to fight wars the galaxy had never imagined. While you believed humanity was struggling to achieve basic spaceflight, Admiral Chen said, we were building the most advanced military and industrial infrastructure in the galaxy. Every piece of alien technology we studied made us stronger. Every intelligence report made us more prepared. Council Leader Mordak stared at the images with growing horror. The primitive colony ships we observed leaving Earth 20 years ago were decoys, Admiral Chen confirmed. Real human colonization efforts have been ongoing for over 50 years, using routes and methods your people never detected. Humanity now controls over 400 star systems, with populations in the billions. The numbers hit the Council like physical blows. Humanity was not a small, struggling species taking its first steps into space. They were a major galactic power with capabilities that made the Council's combined fleets look like toys. Every assumption we made about your people was wrong, Ambassador Zethkri said, his voice filled with despair. Not wrong, Admiral Chen replied with something that might have been sympathy. Simply incomplete. You saw what you expected to see, and we were careful to meet those expectations. It is not your fault that you underestimated us. Many civilizations have made the same mistake throughout galactic history. She paused and looked around the chamber one more time. The question now is what happens next. Humanity can no longer remain hidden. Our capabilities are too great and our goals too important. The galaxy is about to change, whether you are ready for it or not. The age of human secrecy was over. The age of human dominance was about to begin. The silence in the council chamber stretched on for what felt like hours. Every representative stared at Admiral Chen with a mixture of fear, anger, and grudging respect. Finally, Council Leader Mordak found the courage to speak. Admiral Chen, you have revealed capabilities that change the balance of power in this galaxy. You have demonstrated technologies beyond our understanding and intelligence networks that dwarf our own security services. What does humanity want from us? Admiral Chen clasped her hands behind her back and began walking slowly around the central platform. Her boots made soft clicking sounds on the polished floor that seemed unnaturally loud in the silent chamber. What we want, Council Leader Mordak, is justice. We want an end to the suffering that has plagued this galaxy for too long. We want civilizations to be judged by their actions, not their military strength or political connections. Ambassador Zethkri rose from his seat, his voice shaking with emotion. Justice? You speak of justice while revealing that you have been spying on us for nearly a century? You have lied to us, infiltrated our societies, and built military forces in secret. What kind of justice is that? Admiral Chen stopped walking and turned to face him directly. The kind that prevents another Kethmari massacre. The kind that stops slave traders from operating in council space while you debate proper procedures. The kind that destroys raiders and pirates before they can burn entire worlds. The reference to the Kethmari massacre sent shockwaves through the chamber. 50 years ago, the Void Reapers had destroyed an entire civilization, while the council debated whether military intervention would violate their charter. By the time they decided to act, 12 billion beings were dead. The Council operates according to established laws and procedures. Military advisor Thexmar growled. We cannot simply attack whoever we choose without proper authorization and legal review. And while you review and authorize and debate, Admiral Chen replied, her voice growing harder, innocents die. Children are sold into slavery. Pirates raid peaceful colonies. Corrupt governments oppress their own people. Your procedures have created a galaxy where evil flourishes because good beings are too careful to act. She touched her uniform control. Again, and new images appeared on the main screen. These showed recent atrocities across council space. Slave markets operating openly, pirates attacking defenseless traders, corrupt officials stealing aid meant for disaster victims. Humanity offers a different approach, Admiral Chen continued. We will be the galaxy's guardians. We will act when action is needed, strike when striking is justified, and protect those who cannot protect themselves. We will not wait for committee. Approval to save lives. The chamber erupted in angry voices as representatives from dozens of species shouted objections and protests. The noise grew louder and louder until Admiral Chen raised her hand for silence. Somehow, her simple gesture was more effective than any amplification system. I understand your concerns, she said when quiet returned. You fear that humanity will become the very thing we claim to oppose, another tyrannical force imposing our will on the galaxy. Your fears are not unreasonable. History is full of guardians who became oppressors. Council Leader Mordak leaned forward in his seat. Then how can you ask us to trust you with this power? How do we know you will not become another threat to galactic peace? Admiral Chen smiled, but this time the expression was genuinely warm rather than coldly professional. You don't have to trust us, Council Leader. You have to choose. The galaxy's current system has allowed threats like the Void Reapers to flourish for centuries. It has permitted slavery, piracy, and genocide while bureaucrats debate proper procedures. We offer change. What kind of change? Ambassador Hextra asked suspiciously. Partnership, Admiral Chen replied. Humanity does not want to rule the galaxy. We want to protect it. The Council can continue to handle trade disputes, territorial negotiations, and diplomatic relations. But when violence threatens innocence, when evil acts without restraint, when the old ways fail, that is when humanity will act. She gestured, and the screen showed images of human forces in action across the galaxy. They were not conquering or destroying, but protecting. Human ships escorted merchant convoys through pirate-infested space. Human marines liberated slave camps that had operated for decades. Human medics provided aid to disaster victims while council committees were still scheduling meetings. We are already acting, Admiral Chen said simply. The question is whether the council will work with us or against us. Either way, humanity will continue to protect those who need protection. Military Advisor Thexmar stood up, his massive frame bristling with anger. And if we refuse your partnership? If we decide that your way is not acceptable? What then? Admiral Chen? The temperature in the chamber seemed to drop several degrees. Admiral Chen's expression became completely neutral, showing nothing of her thoughts or intentions. Then you will try to stop us, she said quietly. And you will fail. Her simple statement carried more menace than any threat could have. Every being in the chamber remembered the demonstration at HFY Station. The casual way human forces had taken control of the galaxy's most advanced warship. The fleets you have seen represent our home defense forces only, Admiral Chen continued. Our expeditionary fleets are larger and more advanced. Our deep space assets remain hidden throughout the galaxy. Our research divisions continue to develop technologies that you cannot imagine. If the Council chooses to oppose humanity, you will discover exactly how outmatched you truly are. Ambassador Zethkree's voice was barely audible. How much larger are your true forces? Admiral Chen paused, as if considering whether to answer. Large enough to simultaneously engage every military force in Council space and emerge victorious. But we would prefer not to. War benefits no one except those who profit from suffering. She touched her uniform one final time, and the screen showed a galaxy-wide map with thousands of glowing points representing human assets. But now the points were not just intelligence operatives, they were military bases, fleets, research stations, and industrial centers. Humanity had not just been watching the galaxy, they had been quietly surrounding it. "The choice is yours, honored counselors," Admiral Chen said. "Accept humanity as partners in galactic security, or attempt to maintain a status quo that has failed for centuries. But understand that, either way, the age of galactic weakness is ending. Evil will no longer act without consequence. Justice will no longer wait for committee approval. The innocent will no longer suffer while bureaucrats debate." Council Leader Mordak looked around the chamber at his fellow counselors. He saw fear in some faces, anger in others, but also something else: hope. For the first time in decades, someone was offering real solutions to the galaxy's oldest problems. "If we agree to this partnership," he said carefully, "what guarantees do we have that humanity will not abuse this power?" "The same guarantee any civilization has," Admiral Chen replied. "Our own moral character and the knowledge that power without restraint ultimately destroys itself. You will have to judge our actions, not our promises." The debate that followed lasted for hours. Representative after representative stood to voice concerns, objections, and occasionally support for the human proposal. Some demanded impossible guarantees. Others suggested alternatives that everyone knew would never work. A few called for immediate military action against humanity, though these voices quickly fell silent when reminded of what had happened to the Void Reapers. Finally, as Nexus Prime's sun set behind the crystal spires of the capital, Council Leader Mordak called for a vote. The question was simple: would the Galactic Council accept humanity as partners in maintaining galactic security? The vote was closer than many expected, but the outcome was inevitable. The Council had seen what happened to those who opposed human military force. They had also seen the failures of their own system over centuries of bureaucratic inaction. When the final tally was announced, humanity had been accepted as galactic guardians by a margin of 7 votes. Admiral Chen stood in the center of the chamber as representatives from hundreds of species looked down at her. Some faces showed acceptance, others resignation, still others barely contained hostility. But all of them showed respect. "Thank you for your trust," she said simply. "Humanity will not disappoint you. The galaxy's long night of suffering is ending. The age of justice has begun." As she spoke those words, similar scenes were playing out across the galaxy. Human fleets emerged from hiding to begin their new role as protectors. Slave camps that had operated for generations were liberated. Within hours, pirate strongholds that had seemed untouchable were reduced to floating debris. Corrupt officials who had thought themselves untouchable suddenly found human marines at their doors. The galaxy would never be the same. For better or worse, humanity had stepped forward to become the guardians they had always been preparing to be. The question now was whether the galaxy would learn to live under the protection of beings who had spent a century learning all of its secrets. In the end, it no longer mattered what the galaxy wanted. Humanity had made their choice, and they had the power to enforce it. The age of human dominance had begun, and there was nowhere in the galaxy to